Alright, so episode 5 of season 3 of Final Space. So, as you can see here, and yes, I will be spoiling as ever again, this is the Quinn episode, the Quinn backstory episode. And I'll just say this, although I really did enjoy this episode, there is one thing that is slightly concerning in the fact that I hope that they're not just going to do flashbacks for every single character in this, just because it's kind of a bit distracting when you do it over and over again. I mean, when you think about it, we've had the Avocado flashback and as well, literally a couple of episodes ago. So yeah, and then we even had a one for the Lord Commander briefly as well. So it it does work itself in naturally in terms of the plotting in this one, but it might come to the point where if they do constantly do this for every character, it may become distracting. However, at the same time, I am for this. I am for them going into a bit of backstory and giving the characters a bit more depth and, actual backstory. It kind of adds to them as well. So I'll talk about that aspect. So Gary and Co, after basically being shocked up by the Lord Commander, warp driving to basically a essential black hole that leads to Invictus. And because of this, Quinn starts, well, going a bit doolally, to put it a bit lightly. And we all know that, obviously, from the previous episodes, that she's got, I think it's 34 hours and counting to live. And yeah, she's getting worse and worse and starts having flashbacks of her and her sister, who I don't think she's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think has ever been mentioned or hinted at before. And I think that, is a slight problem, because if there was maybe a couple of hints of that before, then maybe this would have been a little more impactful. It still was impactful, but it was more for the fact of, it gave Quinn a bit more backstory, and it did explain, I guess, more of the unwillingness to tell Gary, and more of just, I guess, her ability, to want to kind of save people and follow them into basically, oblivion, kind of. So it's basically the story of Quinn's mother, basically, who we've never met before and has never been mentioned before, on how she essentially traumatized her daughter by showing her a load of corpses. Yeah, and basically telling her, yeah, this is what happens when you have someone's life in your hands. Never let your sister go, never let her die. Which, it's never said how old Quinn is at this stage, but yeah, in the flashback, but she's, I don't know, either a teenager, possibly, or maybe 12 at the youngest. I don't think she would be. She doesn't look much younger than that. But yeah, it kind of just shows how both of them, you know, led kind of a similar life, and how her sister, for some reason, went out and presumably died. We're not really sure why, to be honest. We're not really told a lot about it. It's all kind of mostly done in visuals, kind of, but it tells, which is really hard to describe it because, it is all, for the most part, the flashback stuff is mostly about the visual aspect than anything else. At the same time, the rest of the crew have to basically try and fuel their engines, I guess, to, get away. And that's what the rest of the episode is about. I will say, though, it does give the character, who I think his name is Biscuit. I think. I could be wrong. The little tiger character, who I literally cannot remember his name, but I think Gary calls him Biscuit. And he does actually have, in this episode, more of a purpose. I guess. He's still fucking annoying. He is still basically just another Kevin. And I think part of the reason I do hate him more than Kevin is I think just the high pitched voice just makes him much more irritating than he'd need to be. We also have Ash, who I will talk about in a little bit. But yeah, most of this episode is basically just like another panic situation. We've got to get away kind of thing. So yeah, it does a really good aspect with the Quinn stuff, and it gets to the point where Quinn kind of is blurring reality and what is really happening. So she kind of gets absorbed into her own kind of flashbacks where she can't tell what is really going on and ends up walking outside of the ship, which, you know, Gary runs after her, and for a brief moment, it looks like Quinn is going to die for a brief second, and I was wondering if they were going to do this, but I didn't think they were going to just kill her off now, this early on, and B, you know, when we've just got a little bit of backstory on her. I will say, though, Gary does give a good speech in this one. Yeah, Gary's been giving a couple of good speeches recently. And the one he gives in this one is, again, played seriously. It's not played for jokes. In the fact that he says, you know, I want to know about your sister, you know, if you die, then her memory dies with you. Which, yeah, pretty good point. And you know what, Olin Rogers? It kind of shows how much he has progressed as an actor in the way he delivers this line. He delivers this line a lot more genuinely than I think he has done out of any other. It feels a lot more, you know, like Gary is actually legitimately seeing this rather than, you know, it feeling forced and feeling like the cliche. The way it's performed is done really well. And the fact that it feels more natural and more, you know, it just is. They don't play the over dramatically serious. It just feels like he is just trying to desperately, you know, talk Quinn out of walking off the end of the ship. And that's where we're getting at Ash. So we get a bit more of Ash in this episode, and yeah, she is not happy that they left Fox behind. And kind of spends most of the episode basically in a conflict of minds and torments because she has Invictus kind of, you know, talking to her, and she doesn't really know, you know, who she really is. She basically gets confirmed that her powers, you know, are from Invictus, which, yeah, obviously they were. And there's also the thing that maybe she is Invictus's daughter, which is a possibility. Invictus does call her daughter, so I don't know if it is a biological thing or whether he just gave her those powers. Don't know. A little bit ominous, but it could just be as simple as, yes, he is her daughter. So, meh. But at the end of the episode, she does save Quinn and Gary. So, but then she goes through the black hole to basically, presumably, go and fight Invictus and get her brother back. And it's clear Invictus, you know, needs Ash for something. He needs her for something because he's constantly trying to convince her, you know, to basically be on his side. So I don't know whether it's just a thing of, oh, you know, he has a massive advantage if she is on his side, which he would, or whether he does, I don't know, maybe need her power or something. I don't know. I'm not going to bother speculating because this season will probably answer that question at some point. But yeah, she goes, and Little Kato is the only one really who seems massively upset about this. And I know last season and a couple of bits in this season, they are hinting, at a sort of kind of romance between. I don't know if they were kind of romance between them. Kind of, they were, they were setting it up in a couple of episodes last season, very briefly, and there's again hints at that. But yeah, but somebody does say, and this is something that is happening. Why do we keep leaving people behind? Which is true, because they've left Fox behind, and now Ash is left behind, and yeah, it seems like getting everyone back together. It does seem like probably they're going to lose each one of them in each episode, or every other episode, I guess. I don't know. My guess is in the next couple of episodes we're gonna get maybe a Gary's mum focused episode, possibly. She does actually get a little bit to do in this episode, I guess, a couple of things. But, she kind of just feels like, again, in the background in this season so far, and hasn't really had much at all to do. But, I mean, she did get a couple of focus episodes in the last season, so I guess that's why. We don't really need to go into her backstory, I guess. But, we don't need to have a backstory episode to have a character-focused episode either, so yeah. But overall, this one, does feel like it's kind of like we're almost at the big point. Episode 6 or 7, generally Final Space does the halfway point where they'll have something that massively changes the dynamic, which is kind of like the expecting thing. So I am expecting, in season 1, just after halfway through, it's generally just after halfway through the season, we have a big, massive change. In season 1, it was Avocado's death. And ironically, in season 2, it was bringing him back. So, yeah, in season 3, who knows? But I've got a feeling probably either episode 7, maybe episode 8, will have a big shake-up of things, I guess. I don't think Ash was the big shake-up that maybe it's predicted to be, but definitely something is going to happen. Possibly it could be Quinn's death, who knows. But overall, again, this season is a lot stronger. It is a lot stronger. And you know what? I will say this. There were a couple of jokes in this episode that were actually funny. Yeah, they were short and quick, but they didn't stop the plot. There is a quick one where Kevin pulls up Avocado's trousers and and basically says, "Oh, Avocado, you're all limp," and you just see him and he's completely buff under there. So that was pretty funny. A nice little visual gag there, and stuff like that just works because it wasn't the whole Gary screeches about cookies for 5 minutes. So yeah, Final Space can do jokes, and I think jokes like that work much better because they're a lot faster paced. They don't just stop the plot, and it's not someone screeching at the top of their voice for 5 minutes. So, yeah, stuff like that. Final Space can actually do an effective joke. Or two. Yeah, a couple of effective jokes. There was another one about... The other one was basically Kevin is unaffected by the anti-gravity, and the joke about the anti-gravity, the gravity could have been turned down the entire time. Got like that, just like, okay. Well done with that. It didn't stop all upon it was legitimately funny. So, yeah. Overall, again, just more improvements. We seem to have more improvements the more along we go. So I'm definitely looking forward to the next episode, and let me know what you think about this one. Anyway, that's it for this video. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.